All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully your favorite Chelsea podcast out there and a part of the Men in Blazers media network. Dan, one of your hosts here with Nick. If you're watching on YouTube, it's an in-person version of the podcast.
Yep.
Nick and I are enjoying a view into New Orleans. We were in Louisiana. Had a chance to enjoy a lot of things yesterday and this weekend. Most notably, missing and absent on that list was a win from Chelsea Football Club, a draw from Chelsea Football Club, or a comprehensive result and performance of Chelsea Football Club. This match review is going to be a little bit of a different format. We're recording again live in person, which is always very special for us to get an opportunity to do that together. We had a wonderful time with the friends and friendly people here in Louisiana, the Carefree Louisiana group in particular, and their Blues Day. We're going to talk about that too. And, give some thoughts around like what is upcoming now for this Chelsea team, particularly in the back of some results today with the Newcastle result winning over Forest 4-3 that just continues to add pressure from behind for Chelsea and change the table quite dramatically. But Nick, just right off the top, a couple of quick thoughts about the match. What do you think the result means and how are you feeling?
How am I personally? How am I feeling? I mean, if you're on YouTube and you're like, "Wow, Nick looks terrible," you're correct. I do. We partied pretty hard yesterday, and that kind of set aside the sting of this defeat. I mean, it was a pretty brutal result. Not only because it's a familiar pattern, right? You see this Chelsea team play pretty well for a stretch of time, largely in the first half, completely fall off and lose the standard in the second half, and then just are left begging with stupid errors on a personal level that really, really frustrate you because it was there to be had. I mean, and so many times this season, it's been there to have, right? And it's not as if it's been a rare moment where Chelsea have just been completely outclassed this season. I would say like second half against City, just completely outclassed. There have been some moments where we just haven't looked up to the part, but a lot of it is dumb, fixable stuff. And, the Gusto touch going for the, basically helping Rashford make an assist, the silliness that happened the last 20 minutes of the game, just getting peppered with shots, Jorgensen letting a ball somehow, go through his chest. I have no idea how that works or happens. These are the things that will keep Chelsea from reaching the targets this season. And unfortunately, I don't know how it gets better.
Yeah, a chance to watch Chelsea with continued self-inflicted wounds at all levels in terms of the preparation for the game. We can and we will talk about Enzo Maresca's tactical change, which was a bold move from him, considering that maybe some of that was a little player personnel forced in terms of who is or isn't available at the time, which is maybe also kind of something or criticism that could be laid at the feet of the sporting directors for preparing the team, because you saw one team that reinforced in key areas in January have a much better time later into that match than our team did, who did not reinforce appropriately in January to try to give ourselves a little bit of a boost to carry us across the line to make sure that we could really knuckle down and get into a top 4 position for the remainder of the season and set us up for ultimate success. But look, we love to start with through match review to kind of just set the expectation. What was yours, Nick?
Well, we're in New Orleans. We're looking out on the cityscape, and
so we themed it. You had to theme it.
We themed it, of course we did, because we're silly, and that's what we do. I went with Can't Play Jazz, and what I mean by that is the improv skills that this team has in the final third right now are just not there. I mean, it is very, very clear that if the pass into the cross or the cutback isn't there, there is no alternative. And I think that's something that's pretty worrying.
Well, also in the theme of New Orleans, I went with Chelsea lacks soul, because right now when you watch that on the pitch today, you saw about 15 minutes of performance at the beginning that gave you some confidence that this Chelsea team might be able to go out and get a result on the day. But as you continue to watch, some unfortunate challenges and tackles, some dropping off and runs, and some competitiveness and one-to-one battles with other players, we didn't look up for it. We continue to not look up for it or prepared or ready to take on the fight, to take on the challenge of the teams facing in front of us. And a team that, rightfully so, is looking to take your spot in European competition next year. So you should be up for this type of game, and we're definitely not there. I do want to pivot though, because like we are not maybe as sad as we were after the match, or angry or upset. We're still frustrated about where Chelsea are today. I think we have realistic expectations that are shifting at this moment, but we do want to take a couple minutes here just to talk about Blues Day, a very unique experience in the U.S. I mean, there's so many people who go to a local pub in cities across the United States. And I think this is kind of very, interesting to maybe people who, live in London or live across the world, listen to the podcast, who maybe don't have that kind of opportunity to go week in, week out to watch a game with friends or to watch a pub or a establishment. This is something that is unique even within the U.S. landscape as a event that, well, not on the size and scale of, a summer tour type of activation, which, that has Chelsea playing an actual game. So it does have the ability to draw a little bit more. This is people coming from across the U.S. to Louisiana, to New Orleans, to hang out with this crazy, wonderful group of individuals who built the Carefree Louisiana troupe that they have here, and watch a game together and enjoy some parades and have a really, really wonderful time. I think I had an expectation coming in, exceeded my expectations by multiple levels, and the hospitality here, second to none.
Yeah, I mean, I've had Ben and
don't struggle there.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, I've had Ben and Dylan and Roy on the podcast to talk about Blues Day for like the last 2 or 3 years, I think, and they've always hyped it up. And it is a really unique experience because it's combining a Chelsea match day and a match watching experience with Mardi Gras. And Mardi Gras is this big kind of festival party right before the holiday season kind of kicks off down here. And it becomes this kind of monster of a day, right? Where you have the matches finally at a decent time for us, 11:30 Central on a Saturday, which is wonderful because we got to sleep in a little bit. And then you basically go to the parades right after that and have a huge day out. Everyone's making homemade food, jambalaya, pastalaya, whatever the
pastalaya was
red
banging.
Beans. I mean, we ate well down here for sure. And more importantly, it was, I think for me, just a gathering where there was just a lot of love. You had people who hadn't seen each other for a year, 2 years, 3 years. You had people hugging who had never met before, just excited to be around. And we played a very small role in this event. Like, we did a little bit of warm up before the game, and there was a raffle. And you'll see this because we hired a videographer to document the whole day. And shout out to Blake for an incredible amount of work that he put into this thing. But it was just a day full of love and celebration. And even though the result didn't go our way, it was really, really, really special. And I would struggle to find a more American experience for a Chelsea fan than this. I mean, if you haven't been in New Orleans before, it's the most unique American city that there is. Like, maybe New York, but I think it's really New Orleans, the confluence of culture and art and music and food. The food. Oh my God.
Favorite thing you ate? Honestly, this, if you're like, hey, maybe I should tune this out. It's actually more interesting than talking about Chelsea lose 2-1 and not securing or not making a Champions League kind of run here at the moment.
So day one, let's just go through this. We get there and we're invited to one of the members,
Sam's house.
Yep, he has this unbelievable house, and he had a group of folks who were cooking all sorts of homemade goodness, but the red bean gumbo particularly stood out to me. I think the jambalaya was also excellent, but the red bean gumbo really slapped and was super interesting. And so that's probably my favorite thing. Although, I mean, we've had a really good time just eating and drinking our way through the city.
Yeah, I mean, shout outs to Maggie, who was tending bar there. She did a wonderful job making sure nobody was going thirsty throughout the evening, which was
we did not. No parched mouths around there. No.
The guys from the Chelsea Against the World podcast did a little bit at the beginning as well too, to kick things off, which was nice to them. Good to get to see some of them again. But yeah, definitely a really nice night. First night out, late night smash burger in front of Rendezvous Bar. as well. We had a good time.
No doubt about it. And then, we obviously did the match experience, went to the parades, went out to Frenchman last night after some great dinner at Luke, which truly excellent if you're looking for a reco. And then just watched some jazz and hung out with some of our friends from New York / New Orleans. They live in both places. And
yeah, Sean and his wife. It was really great to hang out with them too.
Just had a blast, and that's why I look terrible right now, because I basically spent the last 2 days on the sauce, but it was wonderful.
And you only get to make fun of Nick looking bad if you actually go to YouTube. So the quick plug, go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Subscribe, like, comment the videos. Maybe, I don't know if we need to put a warning on the front of the video, but we could do that too. But anyway, really phenomenal experience with Blues Day. Super, super appreciative of all the hospitality. If you have a chance to do it next year, we would highly recommend it. The people, the cuisine, it makes for a great weekend. It was also one of those weekends that you just felt completely safe. Like everybody was in good spirits. If you have kind of a view of like what Mardi Gras and parades are, I'm sure it could be like that in ways and shapes and forms, depending upon how hard you want to go. But if you go to where more of the locals are, which is where we were hanging out on the parade route, it was a very wonderful, friendly, warm experience. So definitely consider it. Definitely check it out. You can go to carefreelouisiana.com, which is their site to learn more. They also have some bespoke merch that they're working on, which takes inspiration from some of the New Orleans type of themes. And I think we're pretty excited about what they're doing with that too.
Yeah, look, great time. Very safe. I mean, I know New Orleans has kind of been through the ringer since the start of the year, and that needs to obviously be a part of your consideration. But if you're looking to do something where there's just a ton of heart, ton of community vibes, and a ton of love, this was a great, great weekend. It exceeded my expectations, and they were pretty high to start. And so I think just between the atmosphere, the people, they went above and beyond to make us feel welcome. I'm sure they did the same for every other person that was there. So just a huge shout to Dylan, Roy, Ben, anyone who organized this event, because it takes an absolute shit ton of work to do, something like this, to get the pub ready, to, have the parade route set up. You have to get out there super early to get everything organized and all that sort of stuff. So just a huge, huge shout, because we felt the love, Dan.
Well, I mean, it was Dallas Blues, Houston Blues, Baton Rouge Blues, people from New York, people from California, people from right here in New Orleans, like tons and tons of Chelsea supporters groups across the U.S. represented in this. So again, check it out. Really, really great people. You won't have a bad time down here. Maybe, though, if you're only thinking about the Chelsea, you might have a bad time. And this is going to make the hard turn from a pretty positive conversation into one that is critically looking at the challenges that continue to mount for this Chelsea team, for the players and their performances, for Enzo Maresca and the challenges that he has in front of him, for the sporting directors, and then the club hierarchy. Chelsea continue to find themselves struggling to find form, struggling with results. As we kind of go into this one, the lineup was the thing. And this will kind of be more of a stream of consciousness element, because we were kind of reacting to it, watching it with a group of people. Lineup drops as we're kind of hitting the Uber and going over to the pub. And you see that Maresca has made some decisions. He's made some changes there, but leaves Jorgensen in between the sticks, goes with Gusto, Chalobah, Colwell, Cucurella. Reece James pushes up into midfield with Moises Caicedo. And then you have Nkunku on the left, you have Palmer in the right, you have Enzo Fernandez sitting in the middle, and then Pedro Neto as a false nine. Bold moves. We had talked about this idea that Pedro Neto might end up being tested in that false nine capacity, something he has done before. We have seen Reece James play midfield before, not necessarily a ton at all for Chelsea, but in his loan spell before coming back to the club. So that was not necessarily something he is incapable of, but something that was maybe surprising. That was one of the first decisions he's made. What were your initial thoughts to the lineup? And then we can kind of talk about just maybe how it actually came together.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was going to be some forced change, right? The injuries kind of make that necessary. But I thought it was going to be a 3-4-3, 3-5-2 setup. And it just simply wasn't. It was the same tactics, just different personnel in different places. I I was excited by the prospect of Malagusto getting to play wingback because I think that is very clearly a much better place for him to be than whatever he's being asked to do now. It's just not working for all the reasons that we've all seen. Reese in midfield was super, super interesting though. And not only was this a like, hey, you have a defender who can do some of the dirty work, track back, he was doing all that, but he played a couple defense splitting passes to the wings that we simply haven't seen for a long time, right? Unless Cole Palmer's dropping all the way back to play, in that central midfield role, which is not why you have Cole Palmer in your team. This was an excellent, excellent alternative to those sorts of defense splitting passes, and it pushed Enzo Fernandez up into a much more comfortable number 8, number 10 sort of role where he was kind of causing all sorts of chaos. And him and Pedro Neto were almost, switching the false 9, right? Which allowed, Palmer and Nkunku to play a little bit further back. And I think that's going to be a better solution for both of them. So there was some creativity to what Maresca did in the setup. Again, it's not personally what I would have done, but it was interesting, at least for the first half. I think where I'm a little bit weirded out and frustrated is that Chelsea had 8 days between getting whooped at Brighton and playing this game at Villa Park, and we looked unfit. I don't know why. Like, Villa had just played an incredibly intense match on Wednesday against Liverpool, got the draw, right? So why do we look like we're exhausted all the time? Like, what is going on with this team?
Well, I think we saw a situation, too, where very early into the match, there was the forced change for Treb Chalobah coming off in the 8th minute for Tosin, who ends up coming in to replace him. And you went through an entire game, and your only other sub came on in the 76th minute, Jadon Sancho, which feels a little short-sighted in trying to give this team the energy you need, give this team the opportunity to fight and come back. When you look at what Unai Emery did, he made changes in the 46th minute, and we brought off Ramsey, put in Rashford. He made changes in the 60th minute, in the 70th minute, in 2 in the 77th, 78th minute. He was willing to go to his bench to bring on fresh legs. And you were watching a Chelsea team that continued across the second half to really struggle with trying to handle what Villa were willing to do in terms of being competitive, pushing out, really reducing the amount of space that they had. And you had some players like Nkunku, who was really struggling to be involved in the game. There's not really a space or place for him. It could have been something where starting with Jadon Sancho or potentially going from Jadon Sancho to someone like Ty would have been even more favorable. And I know that Maresca's quotes about him were very unfortunate and maybe a little misguided around the fact that you also gave him a start, you gave him an opportunity, and now you're saying he's not ready to play, which doesn't feel great and probably is not the best thing to build up a player, but that's maybe less concerning to me than watching the performance suffer and not trying to make proactive changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where a lot of Chelsea fans, like, we did the thing. We switched off in the second half, completely switched off. We didn't play to nearly the level that we did in the first half. We give up a goal pretty early on in the second half. And it's at that point where, like, previous iterations of Chelsea, I felt like we would come back. We'd say, all right, enough. We're good. We're going to start making significant moves, and try and win the game. I don't feel that way about this team. I think once we give up a goal, the heads go down. The mood around the team just looks awful. You have players lashing out, making terrible tackles to try and look tough. And it leaves us in a spot, Dan, where we don't believe that they're going to do it. I'm sure they don't believe that they're going to do it. And the only guys on, that are really on the bench that you would want to pull, forward in a match like this, Malagusto struggling. Why not bring on Josh? Josh isn't saddled with the burden of this group, really. Why not bring on Ty? Why not see if the young buck can do something? right? You're not getting any productivity from the wings anyway. And Kunku was listless in the second half. Why not bring him on? Why not try something? It's to me, look, you might not have the bevy of options that you were hoping to have if you're Enzo Maresca. The injuries have clearly hit us, and like that is just a part of life. Like it is what it is. But it's not as if you have zero options, right? And I think where I'm struggling with him right now is he is trying to force fit players who are clearly good at various things into his rigid system, and it's not working.
What we'll say is maybe he, appreciate the fact that he was attempting something different in terms of where he was placing players and trying to make something happen. Obviously, Neto was listed in the sheet as being the top as a striker, but spent a lot of time on the the right wing, kind of cutting in, taking players 1-on-1. Obviously assisted in this match too, which was a nice thing to see. Any type of goal and assist contribution from him.
Yeah,
it was nice to see Enzo kind of just be in the right place at the right time and make the forward run. You could argue that he probably could have had another goal too, but you're also going up against a better keeper than what we have as well. And so we have 1,500 keepers, and none of them are as good as Emi Martinez is.
No.
And Asensio was great in the day too. He was really, really good to watch. It was obviously value for money in terms of the fact that they have him in on that 6-month opportunity here now. I'm just really looking at it, and you look at the Enzo Maresca challenge is real. It's a challenge of how does he get a result from this team, this side, and who can he try to build trust with and give an opportunity, whether it's in a 15, 20-minute view, which he doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't look like he feels comfortable doing. When you look at the fact that you did have people, even though they're younger, that you could trust. He also could have brought on Dewsbury Hall. Like, we're also not saying that the entirety of the bench is not necessarily so young that he couldn't have trusted his guy from Leicester. And so that to me is the weird thing, is like you have someone that you knew that you worked with the entirety of last season who comes to Chelsea, and you don't make that call either. Like, I know it was a very young bench. It brought down the average age of the squad pretty significantly, but at the same time, where is he making those type of decisions? He doesn't have a goalkeeper he can trust, because it's one is going to potentially be good enough, but then make a decision that's going to challenge you, and the other is not going to be good enough at all. And it's really tough. I feel for him in terms of the challenges with the injuries and the challenges with what's going on with the players that were or weren't brought in to help support him. But then it's his job to use what is available to get the results. And if you're watching it and you're not doing anything about it, then that's the biggest kind of complicit behavior that I would look for him to try to address over the next several matches here. Because we're going to go until April without Nico Jackson being available.
Without Noni Madueke. I guess my point is this. You're on this slide, right? 3 out of 11. In the Premier League. I think we have not 9 points since December or something like that. Whatever amount of points is not enough, clearly. We're losing time, right? Time is now our greatest enemy, right? The form guide is second to that, because there's only 11 matches left in the Premier League season now?
It's to your point, it's not enough time for this team to be capable. You have 12 matches left. 26 matches have been played.
Yep.
Chelsea are currently in 7th position now, 43 points. We are 1 point ahead of Aston Villa, who played one more match than us at 27. And we are behind our Bournemouth technically on goal differential by +2. So they have a +14. We have a +12. They have played the same number of matches. And Newcastle, with their victory over Forest today, it feels weird to say we were probably hoping for Forest to win that one, maybe expecting Forest to win that one. And they currently sit now at 44 points, Newcastle, +10 goal difference. And Man City, who are currently playing Liverpool, losing at the moment, also sit on 44 points.
So time is your enemy, and we don't have enough time. So I guess my point
it's the Denzel Man of Fire. Yeah. I wish you had more time.
Yes. we also are in a spot though where you've been on the slide 3 out of 11. Why not do something dramatic? Like, what do you have to lose that you haven't already lost? Like, what is it going to take? Like, he's clearly not compromising his principles, right? The way he wants to play, the tactical setup. Although we didn't have as much of the ball yesterday, which I think was helpful because we were able to break out and go on, some of those kind of quick counterattack moments that we've shown that we can score on this year. And I think that was nice to see that it wasn't all just like ball dominance. But why not play Ty? Why not play Josh? Why not, do something a little bit different than maybe we've shown he wants to do, clearly?
I think he might argue, and I wouldn't agree with it, but I think if he was trying to make a case, he would say, well, we had 15 total shots. We beat them on shots in the day. We had 7 shots on target. They had 6. We had a respectable XG relative to them, 2.3 to 2.33. And if we don't have a player assisting a ball into the back of the net, at minimum we draw, and we potentially win if our players are a little bit more clinical. So I think he might feel as if there is something there, that there is enough happening. But I think the eye test, and I know you're the fan of the eye test, when you watch a player who excited us, was playing scintillating football for Chelsea Football Club last season in Cole Palmer, and you watch how he is playing right now, and that would be my ultimate point too, is like something has gone wrong in your ability to get a tune out of this team and to be able to motivate this squad to want to compete. I felt as if the first goal and the goal celebration that team had felt like a real wake up, a real reawakening. Everybody came together, and I was like, man, this could be like a turning point moment. You make a change on who your personnel is. You're trying players in different spots. You're doing something. And then there was no other effort beyond that to try to take this over, get the second goal, put yourself out of distance from this Aston Villa team, and you allowed them to walk back in. And, opposite from clawing away victory from the jaws of defeat, you were happily walking into it, aware that you had you didn't have to do that, and knowing what you were walking into.
They had just played 3 days ago. It was clear that we were
against Liverpool too,
right.
2-2 against Liverpool, and they have been dangerous. They are a dangerous team,
and we clearly showed up with some energy in the first half. Whatever happens at halftime, I have no clue, because you have these guys on the ropes a little bit. If you were Villa, you could have been forgiven for being leggy, for sure. I mean, obviously Rashford, Asensio, some of their key signings in December start on the bench. They tried to freshen up the squad a little bit to get legs in there.
Well, Asensio started the game.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Rashford comes in the second half.
Yep, correct. But like, you have, this is not the like full strength Villa side, I guess is my point, right? That, if you were to take all their top, players in their positions and sort it, you would have had Rashford start for sure, and all that sort of stuff.
He had Pau Torres out, Onana was out, yep. Kamara was not available. So you had plenty. I mean, Ross the Boss Barkley was not available for this match. I mean,
and he's their best player.
He would have loved scoring against us. I feel like at this point.
But I mean, it's not as if this was like an invincible side that you're playing. Like, you're up early. It could have been a demoralizing moment for Villa, but they came back. They showed the character and the will to fight, and that is just something that I am worried about. Right? Because it's football. A lot of things can happen in a football match, right? You could be up early. You could be down early. You could be in a really tough, kind of stalemate sort of situation where no one's really taking the upper hand. All of these things can happen, right? And for whatever reason, this team just doesn't feel like they're fighters. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's happening. Because to me, there should be the strength and character, especially with Reece James on the pitch, and I think playing relatively well for what could be expected. Like, that sort of thing, it bothers me, and it might be repetitive. You might be like, well, Nick, you look like you're hungover and maybe just complaining. You are correct. But I don't know. I don't get the spirit lift from watching this team that I have in the past, where I'm like, okay, there's a solution to this problem, and someone on the team is going to gin up somebody else to go be at their best level for the last 10 minutes of the game. And it felt like we were more likely to lose 3 or 4-1 than to level it up.
I mean, so the one last thing I would want to say is, to me, the difference is night and day when you just looked at the touchline in the dying minutes of the game. And Unai Emery, I think there's people who love and hate, like someone who is maybe overinvested, who's like, very animated. And, I think some of it can come off as like pageantry or performative or micromanaging. I think at the same token, there's also like a defeated look. And the way that Enzo Maresca looked in comparison to Unai Emery yesterday on that touchline kind of told me what I needed from looking at it, was that one of these guys looks like they are coaching their team and helping to will them to victory, and the other is just hoping that what he has done is going to produce results. And the hope strategy, unfortunately, is not a winning strategy. So
hope is not a plan.
Hope is a 4-letter word, but it's not the right word we need right now, which is PLAN, plan. Shifting then to this conversation around what comes next for Chelsea, we did talk about league position here at the moment.
Where did I predict us at the start of the season then?
I think you were 7 to 8.
I was widely panned.
You were widely panned.
And I didn't want to be right. I was hoping that I was just absolutely overthinking it. Where are we right now, Dan?
We're not where we want to be, Nick. How about we say that?
But which
7th place. We are in 7th place right now.
7th place. Interesting.
Now, we say that we're in 7th place, but you're 1 point off 4th. Just to kind of point that in perspective. Fair. You are 4 points off 3rd position. And you are now looking just down a little bit here at the table. 9th position, you are 3 points ahead. So there's a lot of volatility still left. The challenge is you have to start winning games. And so Enzo Maresca had the quote saying, I have a feeling we need to just go win one to have a good run. Your next games are Southampton at home, Copenhagen away, Leicester at home, and then Copenhagen at home. I mean, really, it is a
4 out of 4.
Over to you, my man. Like this is the what you can't control everything, but how you set up, how you prepare, how do you set this team up to try and accomplish what you are setting as the expectation? Because otherwise, you could have a tough time against this Copenhagen team. Like I'm not as confident as I should be.
No,
that we are just going to continue rolling in the Europa League.
No, yeah.
That is how shaken I think our form in the Premier League has made me. We are only in 2 competitions. We should still be in 3 at this exact moment in time, and that is just another kind of point problem here. So there are winnable games in that grouping, very winnable games. Getting embarrassed by Leicester would go down extremely poorly.
If you lose this Southampton team or don't get a win against this Southampton team, which is, I think, going to go down as one of the very worst.
Negative 42 goal difference.
Boy, I didn't need that. Yeah, if you don't get a win, it's going to get loud. And it should get loud because that would be 3 out of 12.
So recent run, they lost 4-0 to Brighton, who we helped play back into form. Yep. They lost 3-1 to Bournemouth. They were in the FA Cup. They lost to Burnley 1-0. They beat Ipswich 2-1, which some teams can beat Ipswich, so good for them. Lost 3-1 to Newcastle, 3-2 against Forest, 3-1 against the woeful Manchester United team back on the 16th of January. So not a great patch of performances for them there. They've had a real hard time winning any type of game that is not an FA Cup game where they can punch down another team. Fills you with confidence, right? That we can make this happen for them.
For them. I mean, if you can't score a couple of goals against the Southampton team, I mean, just phone it in. I don't see how that is possible. Like, it will befuddle us to no end if we can't put 3 or 4 past them, because we did earlier this season. What we put 5 or 6 right away. So I mean they're very poor. They're very poor defensively. If Chelsea does not beat them, does not beat Leicester, does not beat Copenhagen in that tie, the rest of the season is going to be very, 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 very bad. Like you have to figure out a way to claw a result. You have to try different personnel in different, positions, situations, because this is genuinely crunch time. Like these 4 matches could be season defining. And I know it feels weird to say that because it's against the bottom of the opposition in the league and, a Copenhagen team that should not be at Chelsea's level. But if you don't do this, boy, I mean, you're looking at finishing 8th to 11th.
Have you looked at the last 10 matches form table?
No, Dan. Have you?
I have. I have it pulled up, so we'll play a little bit of a game here. Last 10 matches, who has the better performance? Chelsea or Tottenham?
Tottenham.
Tottenham does 10 points over that same. Negative 2 goal difference at this point. We have a negative 6 goal difference in our last 10 with a 9 points registered. We've got a 2 win, 3 draw, and then 5 losses. Let's go with Wolves.
Wow, that's a tough one. I think we're just slightly better.
We are not. They have 13 points in their last 10 matches.
Wow.
4 wins, 1 draw, 5. They do a negative 2 goal difference, 12 scored, 14 allowed. I'm going to give you Southampton.
Stop it. They've done better than us?
No, they've not.
Okay, I was like
1-1-8.
Yeah.
4 points.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
But I mean, they've gotten 4.
Where are Leicester at?
You would want me to tell you.
Above us?
No, it's below us.
Okay, I was like, damn.
They have the worst form over the last 10 with three total points in that. I don't Everton.
Oh, yeah, way above us. Yeah.
15 points in their last 10 matches.
Yeah, the Moyes effect is real.
The thing is, we are trending close to needing that 1.6, 1.7 points average per game.
Yeah.
And so if you kind of just, take the total points and divide by the 10, like you have an idea of how many points teams are averaging right now. We have a 0.9. That is a far cry from being close to the average points we need to pick up per game to get to where we want at the end of the season. I mean, it's Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Bournemouth, Newcastle, City as your top 6 in terms of best form over the last 10 matches. Crystal Palace, number 7.
Yeah.
So
they've improved. Yeah.
If you're trying to say like, hey,
we have not improved.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's, people who are, right now who are talking about like doom and gloom, trying to say like, hey, Chelsea are not in the place they need to be right now. There are a lot of problems going on. I think it's very fair to be critical about the performance. There are still away supporters waking up at ungodly hours across the globe to watch this team and to root them on to victory. And that this is never a rooting against the team scenario. But it's very clear that the football is not the standard of what Chelsea Football Club is. Chelsea Football Club was recast as a project when it really is a club meant to win things on a serial level and to absolutely dominate the sport. And a lot of that identity, a lot of that soul, as I mentioned earlier, is missing from this team right now. And it's going to require a lot of rework to get this team to the place it needs to be. And so right now, it is patching holes on a leaking boat between now and the end of May.
Yep.
And I think, just my theory, I don't think you're firing any manager who is potentially also then going to have to coach a Club World Cup in the summer, which is going to have some really heavy broadcasting dollars associated with it. So I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong. I don't know whether or not they'll do anything from a sporting director level. That would seem like the clearest place to make any type of change.
For sure.
But you're still in a situation where you do not have a front of kin sponsor. You're not winning anything. This is just for the men's side, because ultimately the women's team is the aberration. But when you leave an infrastructure intact and you have handover and there is transition, there's an opportunity to make a plan behind it and to continue building on it and having very good investment prior to it. I mean, we were struggling before the takeover with the men's side. We were on a bit of a downward trend, but there was that ever opportunity to rebound and accelerate. But you're watching teams like Forest who've been able to do it quicker, Bournemouth who've been able to do it quicker, and teams that have struggled over the past season, like Everton, find a way to work themselves back into form. And so I think it is us feeling a little jealous and a little of others, which is not usually
not where we are.
Where Chelsea fans have been historically. We have been the ones other people have been jealous of, and we've gone from being the team that people point at and say things about, but it comes from a place of wanting the success that Chelsea have had, and now we are the one that people point at, but it says the butt of a joke and multiple jokes.
Yeah, I think to close this out, like the best case scenario is that Chelsea do the business, go on a winning run. Maybe that gets kicked off on Tuesday against Southampton. Close the season incredibly well. Maybe it's just like a third, right? The first third was really, really excellent, truly, exciting football and all that sort of stuff. The middle third was very, very bad, and now the final third could be really good, right? Like there still is the possibility of that happening. Doesn't seem very likely, but it's still possible. That's the best case scenario. Is you finish, you do your job, you get into the Champions League. Momentum's around the club, momentum's around the players. You feel good heading into the summer, into the Club World Cup. You maybe make a run in that, and you feel great about where you land. The downside is that you don't. You finish anywhere from 7th to 11th. You don't even make it into the Conference League next year, and you're in a really, really tough spot financially, and I think definitely within the structure. The gap between those two things is wide. I mean, it's a wide gap, and ultimately the players are going to have to play themselves out of it. I don't necessarily have a ton of faith that Maresca is going to be able to coach them out of it. The players are just going to have to show up and show their quality, and let's just hope it works.
Well, that's not the most positive note we can leave you on
Shocking from me, I know.
As we walk ourselves out of this hotel room in New Orleans to go grab a brunch before we head out and try to eat away our feelings at this moment and cover them with gravy and biscuits and fried chicken and all those wonderful things. But, hopefully better times are ahead. And if you're just frustrated with the men's team, I would implore you to go watch the women's team because they're going to win almost everything this year, and it's absolutely glorious. And so if you want to feel really good about your Chelsea again, that's a way to do it. But at the end of the day, try to find things outside of football, too, that bring you joy, because watching this team right now doesn't always feel like the best return on investment for the emotional energy invested in it. But at the end of the day, it is about the friends outside of the football. Being able to be here in New Orleans with the Carefree Louisiana group afterwards, that made the whole element of losing, which sucked. It absolutely sucks to lose so much better, and it washed away the angry emotions much, much quicker too. So hopefully you have people that you can do that with. If you don't, jump in our Discord community too. It's a fun place to hang out. They try to talk through their feelings at times and are usually successful-ish, so we'd recommend that too. But until next time, Chelsea fans, coming to you from New Orleans, keep the blue flag flying high.